Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are today on the 10th SIS General Meeting, the live online event. We will now begin today's event. I will now pass over to Adina to introduce us and welcome us to the event. Adina.
Thank you, Vivek. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. My name is Adina Minculescu, and I am the IATA Head of Invoicing Services based in IATA office in Montreal. Thank you very much for joining today's session, our Sys General Meeting 2021, organized for the first time as an online event. Before we start the session and hand over to our chair, I would like to highlight a few logistics for today's call. First, the session is going to be recorded and it will be shared with the entire SIS community. It will be sent by email to participants to this webinar and will also be posted on SIS website as we are doing usual with the SIS webinar recording. Second, there is a question box on the right hand of your screen. Please ask any questions that you may have and we will address them. In interest of time, in the session today, because we only have 3 hours, we will not take questions on the agenda paper, but you can submit questions on the presentations. The agenda papers were previously published in IATA SSW platform, standard setting workspace, for discussions and interactions between the members. And today we will not be able to take questions on the agenda papers. Due to limited time, we will respond to your questions in writing, and the answers will be part of the Q&A document that will be circulated to all participants to this call. Third, you will receive the supporting documents from today's session, including the recording of the session, the presentation, Q&A document, and any other document that will be mentioned during the session. Everything will be sent by email to the participants on this webinar and posted on the SIS website. Thank you, and now I wish you a good meeting, and I'm handing over to our chair of SIS steering group, Rob Huishman from KLM, to open the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Adina. Well, first of all, a warm welcome to all of you to the 10th edition of this Sys General Meeting. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or even good night, depending on where you are. I only have a few minutes for this opening, and that includes the introduction of your speakers of today, so I will be brief. Last year, when I opened the Sys General Meeting, we were still in a bit of a shock what happened to the world and to the airline industry, and how vulnerable we have proven to be after all. I expressed my hopes that for the Sys General Meeting 2021 edition, everything would have turned to more or less normal, maybe even with a face-to-face event. But unfortunately, we are not that far yet, and that is why we are still behind our screens. Now, I'm very much aware that in many regions in the world, a full recovery of normal life and economy is still many steps away. However, without a doubt, most of us can see some light at the end of the tunnel. And with more and more countries opening their borders for incoming passengers, the first positive news for our industry after such a long time can be noted. So, once again, for next year, we really hope to see you all on the 11th edition of the Sys General Meeting, then without a screen, but in presence. In the meantime, as you are used to, the IATA Sys team and a number of airline colleagues have worked hard in the past months to prepare an attractive agenda for today. So I want to thank them for that, and I will introduce them to you in a minute. But first, I will go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. As already said by Adina, the recording of this webinar is started, and the Q&A document will be sent via an email to all participants of today and also be posted on the SIS website, of which you see the details right now. So I can go to the next slide, please. You see here some participation information of today. You see that 120 eligible SIS participants have registered for today's meeting, and later in the meeting we will also give you an update how many attendees we have for today. And also a full participation list will be shared after this general meeting. Can go on to the next. Before we go to this next subject, I want to introduce you the speakers of today. And I will start with the top table, so to say the virtual table you have in a face-to-face event. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. That's me. Hi. Then we have Mr. Suresh Pereira from Emirates, who is the Vice Chair of Sys Steering Group. Suresh, can you show yourself, please? I guess I don't have a view on the camera, but I guess Suresh was in showing himself. Then we have Mr. Juan Antonio Rodriguez, Director of IATA Global Delivery Center and Secretary of the Sys Steering Group. Thank you, Juan Antonio. Then, of course, we have Ms. Adina Minculescu, IATA Head of Invoicing Services and Managing the Sys Steering Group. Hi, Adina. Then we have Mrs. Marie-Christine Brochu. I hope I pronounce well. IATA Assistant Director of Legal Services. Hello, Marie-Christine. Then we have Mr. Altuk Midanli, IATA Senior Manager Pay Account Standards. Okay, I don't see Altuk yet, but I'll switch over to Mr. Kirk Pereira, IATA Head Standardization and Invoicing. Hi, Kirk. Good to see you. Then we also have Ms. Julia Filiuta, our Senior Manager Industry E-Invoicing. Hi, Julia. Still like your headphones. Then we of course have Mr. Bruno Roussel, our IATA Senior Manager of the APPS community from Geneva. Hi, Bruno. And we also have Mr. Vivek Pundit, who is helping us today. He's our Specialist Industry E-Invoicing and SysGM Coordinator. And then we also have our SIS General Meeting presenters of today. First of all, we have Mrs. Esgi Kubas, who is IATA's Senior Economist. Hello, Esgi. Good to see you. We also have Ms. Camille Chan, our IATA Product Manager, CAS and PAS. I don't know if she is already able to show herself, but then I will go on to Mr. Michael Schneider, IATA Assistant Director, Aviation Environment. Hello, Michael. And then we have also colleagues from airlines who will present their papers for today. And I will introduce them also. First of all, we have Mrs. An Li from China Southern Airlines. No camera yet. We also have Mr. Joshi Kurashina from All Nippon Airlines. We have Mrs. Olga Nasunova from S7 Airlines. We have Mrs. Monica Kolos from Lufthansa. And then we have our Sys Steering Group nominees of later this afternoon. First of all, Mr. Pramod Kumar from Indigo. We have Mrs. Jessica Travis from American Airlines. We have Mrs. Kai-Hong Zhang from Air China. We have Mr. Chris Fang from Xiamen Airlines. And last but not least, we have Mr. Joao Feliciano from Top Air Portugal. So that's the team of speakers we will have for today. And now I can switch over to Marie-Christine for the first subjects.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Many of you have already participated to this annual meeting in the past, and you may be familiar with the computational guidelines. IATA conducts all of its industry meeting in compliance with these computational guidelines. And if we could go please on the next slide, if I can do this. Okay, so as part of these guidelines, as you know, this meeting is online this year. You will have access to the Q&A box and the chat box. The question you'll be asking on the question box will not be visible to all and will not be published, but will be taken back to Adina and the whole team for considerations. However, if you look at the chat box, will be open. However, we ask you if it's possible not to use it in order not to delay the presentations and the meetings, given the limited times that we have. We nonetheless include and warn you of these computational guidelines in any event. Typically, when there's live interaction, participants may not discuss all of the elements that you see on the screens, element regarding prices, fares, service charge, commissions, marketing plan, any commercial term or strategic orientation that your individual airline is taking, and in relationship with agent, airlines, or third parties, etc. So this is the type of views and opinions and information that we would not want to see passing by on the chat box if you were to use it. And going to the next slide, we will also like to remind you that despite that we are recording this session, and because we are recording this session, the live streaming of the webinar, then to participants that are not in attendance is not permitted, except if it would have been otherwise permitted by the chair, which is not the case at this moment. That's it. Wish you a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie-Christine. Then we can switch over to the next topic, which will be done by Mr. Juan Antonio Rodriguez, who will give us a look into the future.
So, hello and welcome, everybody. I think that it is great to be able to virtually address you today. I wish it could be in person. I wish we could be like previous years, having a face-to-face discussion, but unfortunately, as the chairman mentioned in his opening, it's not going to be a possibility this year, although we look forward to having that possibility to take place next year. We are seeing some of the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that we're starting to see some countries opening. We're starting to see some additional volumes going through the systems. And although we are way far from where we used to be a couple of years ago, I think that we kind of start seeing the trend moving in the positive direction. We can see it in our settlement systems. We will look at the overall and the volumes increasing over the last couple of months. I think that we are seeing it in the opening of the skies and the volumes of or the amount of travel happening around the world. And for sure, I hope that you're seeing it in your individual companies. I am not going to be talking about volumes and individual companies or transactions happening as of right now. I'm going to take about 10 minutes to talk to you about looking into the future and into IATA Pay, which is a form of a payment that we are introducing in order to facilitate for you the payment for your direct channels in the mainstream of your settlement systems. In essence, the IATA Pay is an industry payment solution that manages an account to account. This is an account of the customer to obviously the account of the airline. We facilitate that bank-to-bank transfer in order to be able to settle tickets, mainly sold on your website. The technology behind it is instant payment, and we leverage on something that is becoming more and more common, which is a request to pay through open banking. So utilizing the open banking infrastructure, we are able to put at your fingertips the ability to actually make a direct payment from the customer directly to the airline in a bank-to-bank management process. The The flow of how it works is very much at a high level. What we are talking about is for the passenger to go into the airline website, purchase in the airline payment request, going through the payment initiator at a bank level, which in essence arrives to the payer's bank. So it connects the airline website, it brings the customer to the airline website, to the bank of the customer, and it allows for the payment to actually take place at the bank level back to the airline. This is what you see in the payment confirmation from the bank going back to the IATA platform, that in essence sends the real-time notification to the airline that the payment has been done. At the same time, and in point number 5 up there on the top, you can see the transaction being approved and the payer, the customer, receiving the confirmation that that transaction has taken place. In the button side and behind the scenes, what is happening is that the real-time payment is clearing through the clearing bank, providing the funds to IATA that settles with the airline the next morning. So this is a little bit of the way that the flow works. The brown arrows are the data flow, and the black arrows here shows exactly what is the flow of the funds. In a nutshell, we're connecting the customer's bank with the airline bank and making the transaction happening from a bank-to-bank transfer in a global perspective for every single airline that wants to join in all of the countries that we implement. Moving into the next slide, you tell me, well, what are the benefits that we are seeing here? Obviously, the first benefit is what we're all trying to do, which is to reduce cost for our business. And from an airline perspective, you will have one single connection, one single API that will contact go from a global open banking perspective to all countries in which we are able to open this service for our airline members. I've been looking into what is the average, from this case perspective, the average reduction in the cost of this kind of payment bank to bank versus all other current forms of payments that we have currently in place, and it is about 93%. For what our study shown is about 93% cheaper than some of the other payments that we have in place or that airlines have in place today for the direct sales. So that is a tremendous amount of reduction of cost that the airline industry could benefit from. It generates obviously cash for airlines from acceleration of cash. In many cases, we're moving cash in 24 hours. So from the sales of the tickets to the receiving of the funds is 24 hours, which is an acceleration versus some other type of current form of payments being utilized in the system, and obviously secure. It doesn't have a possibility of chargebacks or holdbacks as some other form of payments may have in the current type of situation. So I think it's showing a good amount of benefits. Looking at the strategically, clearly put you in control of the customer experience. We are able to, with the service, provide you with full control of what the customer experience and the discussion with the customer will look like, and a single contact through IATA, which is obviously a trusted provider, since we are an association that works with you and for you. Operationally, I think that the payment confirmation in real time is a tremendous benefit that we are looking for providing to all of our airlines, and the end-to-end service is from a payment and settlement and reconciliation purposes. I think that we are leveraging on the current settlement systems and the historical know-how in which we're able to utilize the current platforms, make sure that we settle in a way that you're accustomed to, and obviously with the reconciliation systems that your airlines have been accustomed to throughout many years of operating through our current settlement systems, including BSP and CAS, as well as clearing houses. The real-time refund is a new feature that is allowed in this type of service, which overall is being highly appreciated through the pilots with the different airlines that we have worked on, and the ability to actually manage a refund on a bank-to-bank transfer on real time, if and when the airline desire to do so, is a new feature that it hasn't been available. It's differential to different type of form of payments that are not in place today, and this is something that is additional to everything that we have enjoyed in the past. So it is a differential service that the airline can provide to their customers. Trying to move to the next slide. Okay, thank you very much. As of right now, as I mentioned, we are looking into 93% of savings on the cost of those transactions, mostly direct sales and the bank-to-bank transfers, where we'll enjoy a good amount of reduction. As I mentioned before, we have 61 airlines that are currently in what we call the IATA Pay community. There is 61 members. One of them has already implemented the solution, and others are in the process of implementing the solution in the near future, and we will look to service as many of you as possible during the balance of this year, and obviously during 2022, providing this service for those that are interested on the implementing it for your direct sales programs. Looking into where do we provide the service as of today is Germany and UK. In the next weeks, we are going to be expanding to Australia, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Finland, and Ireland. And before of the year, probably more in November or maybe early December, Hong Kong and India. So as you see, we're moving quickly into additional countries. We're moving into expanding the product in a quick way in order to provide you service. And during 2022 to 2025, we're looking at more than 30 countries that they will enter into the scope. So the idea is to be a global services. The idea is to cover as large as possible the global spectrum, and to provide you with a global services which gives you a great reach throughout as many countries as possible in the upcoming months and obviously the upcoming years, all the way to 2025. If we move to the last slide, I think it just says that obviously we're here to help, and for any of you that are interested in this new service, we need to continue innovating and providing you with additional ways of moving into the future, enhancing and leveraging on the current settlement services that we have today, providing you with additional tools, innovate to reduce your costs and help the industry move forward during these very difficult times. And for that, we are looking into IATA Pay for now, and many other solutions that support you to increase your reach and reduce your costs whenever possible over the upcoming years. If you have any additional questions, comments, or you want to get in contact for more information, obviously the IATA Pay team is at your service, and you have the email for IATA Pay in this slide, or you can directly contact us in any other shape or form, and we'll make sure that we provide you with whichever answers we can provide for you. So that's it. I will not take any more time because I know that we are pressed with time. If you have any questions in this regards, please make sure that you contact us, And here we are at IATA in order to make sure that we look at any kind of innovation that we can implement in the upcoming years to support the industry. Thank you, everybody, and have a good meeting.
Well, thank you, Juan Antonio, for this interesting presentation and important. I think user friendliness for the customer. The easier you make it to buy a ticket, but also to pay a ticket, that might even be the difference between choosing for your airline or for another airline. So I guess it can really be beneficial. Okay, then I'll go to the next subject, which is actually mine, which is about the report from the SIS steering group. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Vivek. I'll take you through the mandate of the SIS steering group. I also introduce the SIS steering group members to you, and I will take you through the SIS steering group meetings agenda of this year. So the next slide, please. Well, the role and mandate of the SIS steering group. We are a part of the SIS participation agreement, which is described in attachment C of the governance of IATA. We will act as an advisor to the FINAC, the Financial Advisory Committee, and other relevant IATA bodies, and also to the IATA management on matters that are related to the SIS product. So that concerns the operations and further development of SIS services and associated processes. Another important topic of our SIS steering group is the e-invoicing ISXML standard. We will hear later today some more news about it and review and updates to ensure the right standard in place to help industry to achieve savings through automation of processes. And of course, we have an area of activities detailed in the ISPA attachment C, section 1.1. So please, the next slide. Our SIS steering group consists of 15 members, of which 12 are IATA member airlines and 3 non-airlines, the so-called ex-officio members. Now, 5 members are appointed by the Financial Advisory Committee based on the results of the elections at the SIS General Meeting. And then 5 more members are with accounts payable expertise, and they are appointed by the FINAC based on members' nomination. And then 5 officials of both IATA and ACH and other working groups acting as an ex-officio are there, which is the chair of the Interline Billing and Settlement Operations Working Group, the chair of the ATA Revenue Accounting Committee, the Secretary Treasurer of the Airlines Clearinghouse, the IATA Financial Settlement and Distribution Services Director Global Deliverance Center, and also our IATA Senior Manager Pay for Account Standards. Next slide, please. And the current situation is that we have, as of 1st of October 2018, a 3-year mandate. So actually that is ending very soon. But for 5 members with an accounts payable expertise, and those were also appointed in 2018 in July by the FINAC, and 5 members were elected during SIS General Meeting on the September 18th of 2018. Switch over to the next slide, please. And you see here our faces. So you know me. Also, this is my Mrs. Kaihong Zhang from Air China. Let me switch papers. We have Louis Moore from Delta. Of course, we have Suresh Pereira from Emirates. Miss Kaihong Zhang replaces Mrs. Chao Wang, who resigned for our group. And I'd like to express my thanks to Chao for her contribution to our group, and of course welcome Ms. Kaihong Zhang as our new member. Then we have Guido Baldes from Lufthansa. The next slide we have some more. So we have Moad Al-Wakfi from Royal Jordanian, and we have Chris Wiebold from United Airlines. And both members have communicated that they will stop their membership by the end of 2021. Nominees are already will be presented later in the meeting. So I also would like to thank Moad and Chris to their contribution to our group in the past years, and I wish them all success for their future. And yeah. Then we also have Joao Feliciano from Top Portugal, and we have Mr. Pramod Kumar Srivastava from Indigo. So we can go to the next. We come to the 5 ex-official members. We have Brenda Fulmer from American Airlines, who is the chair of the ATA Revenue Accounting Committee. We also have as a new entrant Ms. Sui Han from Singapore Airlines. She is the representative of the IBS Ops Working Group. And we also have Mrs. Laurie Tully as a secretary treasurer of the Airlines Clearinghouse. Okay, we can move on. Well, as you already just met, Juan Antonio Rodriguez from IATA, the Financial Settlement and Distribution Services Director, Global Delivery Center. Then we have Altuk Midanli, our IATA Senior Manager Pay, Account Standard. And we have Juan Antonio also as a secretary of the SIS Steering Group. Move to the next, please. Well, as I already mentioned, a lot of appointing periods are ending right now, and that would of course give us some issues for continuation. So 2021 is an election year for the 5 members with interline, PAX, and cargo expertise. And they are to be appointed by the Financial Advisory Committee based on the results of the elections at the SIS General Meeting. So elections should have been held at this meeting of today for the 5 seats available. But as you have already heard in my introduction, we have 5 nominations received. So the airlines representatives will introduce themselves during the webinar today. But as we have 5 nominations, we will not come to elections. So yeah, the mandate of the 5 members with accounts payable expertise, they are appointed by FINOC with 1 extensional year. So until the and after the SIS General Meeting of next year, of 2022, to have some continuation to the next WFS and Industry Day of next year. Next slide. Well, your SIS steering group has met as usual in a couple of meetings. Well, we normally have 2 face-to-face meetings per year in May and November, and also 1 additional meeting at the WFS. And also we have conference calls between meetings, but due to circumstances, of course, we had no face-to-face meetings in 2021. However, we did our conference calls, and those were on the dates you can see in January, February, and March. We also had a meeting in May, which was over 2 days, spread it in conference calls, with a meeting in June and in August and in September. And also in November, on the 17th and the 18th, we will have our 2-day meeting, also replaced by a conference call instead of a face-to-face meeting. And finally, the last conference call will be on December the 15th for this year. Go to the next slide, please. Also, we discussed in all our meetings the SIS operational performance, and I think Julia will come back to that later in this meeting. It's well, as far as I can say, it's very satisfying to be honest. We have an SLA and we have KPIs, and we follow them. We also have a review of the operations of SIS under the COVID circumstances in 2021, and I'm happy to say that that demonstrated the robustness of the systems and the processes with the teams working from home. So there was no impact on operations or service performance due to COVID. And well, that sounds very easy, but to be honest, I think it's a big performance, and I'm happy with it. Also about Cis Financials, of course, there is impact on volumes. So we had to review the volumes, and we worked with the IATA team. We discussed to reduce the projected 2021 deficit. and that's why no major release in 2021 was done in order to save cost. We also discussed supplier onboarding, also with ISXML invoicing processes, and also with well, for Sys, of course. Requirements for review for Sys new functionality, auto coding, also based on invoice processing. And we also discussed the FDR, which is about the rates, the rates, the forward rates from which is discussed if we would need to change to another call day rate system as we are used to. And we did some surveys over the airlines, and the outcome is that we will not change the calculation of the FDR. There was not enough need for that. So that's also one thing we concluded. Then, of course, as you are used to from us, we also organized a series of webinars, 8 to be precise, and they were in the time frame from November 2020 up to July 2021. Those were conducted by the IATA Sys team, also in collaboration with the Sys steering group and airlines, of course. So one webinar in collaboration with the IBS Ops Working Group, which was held in March 2021. And that one was about passenger rejections and interline billing best practices. In November 2020, to go from bottom to top, we had Sys member profile management. Also in November, but then in the end of the month, we had Sys contact and user management. In January 21, we had output files and reports. In February of this year, we had dispute management. The March one I already mentioned. And in May, we had the legal compliance and tax reporting capabilities in Sys. In June, we had the working with the IS Web. And in July, we had number 5, which was working with the Sys files, ISXML, and IS IDEC. That means that we, if you can go to the next slide, we have 3 more webinars to go, and they will be conducted by the end of 21. And those are about the Sys data retention and time limits. Those are about Sys documentation and support, and about ICH reports. What I forgot to mention is that our experience is that during these webinars, we had participants varying from 90 to even 160, and we received very good feedback. So I think this is an appreciated service from IATA and from the Sys steering group. And I also want to encourage you all to consult the IATA Sys website, which brings me to the next slide. And you can see here over here the address of the website you can go to, because all recordings and presentations are posted on this Sys website. And if you had not the opportunity to go to a webinar that has been held, you can still watch it on the video or take a look at the presentation slides. So again, please use this. Another thing, and I come to the end, is about online voting. Because of the circumstances, 21 will be the first year for an online voting on the SIS General Meeting agenda. And we will come back later on this day with more details. But due to time restrictions, it will not be possible to answer questions on agenda papers during SIS General Meeting today, as Adina already expressed. The agenda was posted on the IATA SSW site from the 16th of July and open for discussions until the 7th of September 2021. The detailed guide for online voting through the IATA standard setting platform has been distributed by IATA through previous communications on industry meetings, including with the final agenda of SIS General Meeting. And if your airline did not register yet to the SSW platform for SIS GM online voting, please do so by the 30th of September. So actually you have 1 day left to do so. So please check it and you have a chance to vote on the agenda items. And the online voting for the SIS General Meeting agenda items will be open for 2 weeks, starting on the 1st of October. So that will be coming Friday until the 15th of October 2021. And of course, the results will be published by the IATA after the closing of the online voting. I think that's about it for me for this SIS update. And that brings me to the next subject, which will be done by Ms. Ezgi Kubas. And it's about IATA economics and the latest market developments. Over to you, Ezgi.
Thank you very much. Good day to everyone. The topic of this presentation will be the latest developments in airline industry in terms of both financials and traffic developments. If we could move to the next slide. And then next, please. Thank you. Let me start by looking at where we are today in terms of passenger traffic. And here you see the major crisis that airline industry has faced with. At the beginning of this crisis, we were thinking that this could be similar to the past crisis, but almost 1.5 years passed, even more than 1.5 years passed. And since we started to see the impact of COVID-19 on airline industry. And when we look at the past lessons from the past, we are far away from the full recovery. In the past crisis, on average, the industry had returned back to where it was before crisis within 6 to 18 months. But as you see from the green line in this chart, COVID-19 pandemic was very exceptional in terms of both its depth and duration. Airline industry is still operating close to 40% of pre-crisis levels. Normally at this time, like after 18 months, we would be expecting industry to return back to where it was before the crisis. And if we could move to the next slide, this demand shock had a huge impact on financials. And in the next slide, please, we see the financial impact on the airline industry. As you see, the scale of the hit of COVID-19 to the aviation industry financials was huge. Blue dotted line shows the industry operating margins by quarter, and the red line is the seasonally adjusted figures. As you can see, with the hit of the COVID-19, airline industry operating margins were turned to huge negative, which would normally be expecting failures, to see many failures, but we haven't seen that because of the government support to the airlines. And from then on, airlines had seen some improvements, but since the revenue recovery, traffic recovery was limited, the improvement did not turn to positive. Airlines had downsized their costs substantially, but since many of the costs were fixed, the improvement was not enough to turn to operating profitability for airlines. As you can see, before the crisis, airline industry was on average operating around 10% operating margins, but now after almost 2 years, we are at minus 30% of the revenues. If we can move to the next slide. And let me show you something positive. And in terms of cash flow generation, we think that there's a light at the end of tunnel, at least for some markets. At the aggregate level, you see the second quarter sample of results for sample of airlines, and you see the clear disparity between regions. Here, North America turned to positive with the support of large domestic US markets. And Europe similarly turned to positive in terms of operating profitability, but it is mostly due to the summer bookings. On the other regions, we see still negative cash flow as the regional recovery, traffic recovery was weak, and the domestic market recovery was not as strong as US domestic markets, with the exception of China. In China, there's some improvement, and we see that airlines turning to cash flow positive in that region as well. But on the other hand, the other carriers in the other regions are still suffering from the negative cash flow. But as we move forward with the vaccination progress and opening of the new international markets, we think that in 2022 we could see better figures going forward. Next slide, please. And in order to turn to operating profitability or cash flow generation, of course, the revenue generation is critical, and for that, the recovery in the traffic is needed. Here in this chart, you see the traffic figures as of July. And there are three lines and three different stories. On the positive side, cargo has been strong since the start of this year with the global economic recovery. And as of July, we see that cargo demand has been 8% higher than the pre-crisis levels. And this is the strongest figure that we have seen since 2017. And this is very supportive for airlines. Before the crisis, only 15% of revenues were coming from cargo, but now it's 35% of total revenues are coming from cargo side. And this provides some relief to the airlines which are struggling on the passenger side. And when we look at the passenger side, again, there's two divergent pictures. One is on the domestic side, the recovery is strong. And as you see from the lockdown, after the following the lockdown periods, the traffic rebounded sharply. We have seen some setbacks. This is mostly due to the travel restrictions that are put on China, but we see clear pent-up demand for willingness to travel. So the recovery continues when the restrictions are lifted. On the international side, on the other hand, there is a persistent weakness. We have here in this chart, you see from the summer onwards, we have seen some recovery, but still international traffic is less than 50% of pre-crisis levels. So this side needs to improve to see a meaningful recovery in terms of the profitability. If we could move to the next slide. Let me show you the details of international travel recovery. As you can see, it is based on few markets. Short-haul and medium-haul regional traffic is recovering faster. And as you see, North America, Central America recovered very quickly. And then we saw within Europe market to recover. But on the other hand, the other markets are linked to Asia are still very low, at the very low levels. And this is mostly due to the travel restrictions that are imposed on those regions. On the other hand, when we look at domestic markets, we see a clear recovery, but there are also vulnerabilities as well. Among main domestic markets, China and Russia recovered above pre-crisis levels, and US market was moving up with the successful vaccine rollouts, and we think that at the end of this year it could proceed to the full recovery. But as you can see, there are vulnerabilities. As I said, there was an outbreak in China in August, and we saw a sharp deterioration in domestic travel during August. So the recovery in the domestic market is going forward, and unless there is any new government restrictions, we think that it could continue this trend. But it is highly vulnerable, and as we see new waves, this could we could see temporary setbacks as well. And here you see the new COVID waves. Again, this causes us a worry. As you see, Asia Pacific region, Europe and North America cases are picking up, and it is mostly due to the new variants. So governments are becoming more concerned about that in some regions, especially in Asia Pacific region, where the restrictions are already too tight. We are seeing new restrictions, and particularly in China, this causes a deterioration in domestic travel. However, as we saw at the beginning of this year, once the restrictions are lifted, demand comes back quickly. So we think that these setbacks could be temporary. And one of the key elements to maintain the recovery is vaccination. And we see that once the vaccination reach to a certain level, travel restrictions are started to ease, as we saw within Europe. But it is progressing slowly. And recently we saw US Europe market to open up, but the restrictions are lifted slower than what we expected at the beginning of this year. We were thinking the second half of the year the restrictions were mostly mostly eased, but this is happening in a gradual way. But on the positive side, going forward in 2022, most of the big emerging markets are also expected to vaccinate their populations at least 50% of their population. So we think that this would allow some emerging markets to open up to international travel, which would benefit the airlines operating in this region, or also operating, connecting the regional traffic. And here you see the travel restrictions. As I said, it remains very tight, especially on the Asian side, and the carriers in the other regions are also dependent on the traffic on Asia Pacific. So this limits the recovery for the airlines in all regions. And as you see, Asia Pacific, North America have the tightest restrictions. North America is mostly due to Canada and US. On the other hand, Europe, Central America and Africa, Middle East are having a less restrictive approach. But when we look at where the restrictions were before the crisis, it is still very tight and restricting the international traffic to recover. But there is some light because once we see that the restrictions are lifted, the demand comes back very quickly. We have seen in many country case examples that there is a clear pent-up demand. Last year around December we saw this similar chart in UAE, UK. This is the chart from UK to Portugal travel. When the restrictions are lifted, the Portugal put into the green list. The demand picked up above pre-crisis levels in a week. But as you see, when the restrictions are imposed, it comes down very quickly as well. Recently, we are seeing similar trends in Europe to US markets following the announcement of the restrictions to be lifted for European passengers. Similar type of booking curve we are observing. So we are confident about the pent-up demand, but the restrictions, as I said, is a limitation for the airlines in the region. in many regions, and this is where we expect airline industry to be in the 20 years time. In the 10 years time, we expect global travel markets to recover following the vaccination progress in emerging markets, and RPKs and passenger demand to recover to pre-crisis levels in 2-3 years time, unless there are new variants and vaccines to be ineffective, which we are not observing in terms of the vaccine effectiveness to affect hospitalization rates recently. So we are confident that we could be somewhere near the blue line. But as you see in this chart, there is a huge range of uncertainty on the downside. So the risk on the recovery is still on the table, but the demand dynamics show that there's a potential for the recovery. And in terms of profitability, where we expect the airline industry to be this year, will be again a loss year. Last year, as you see, the airline industry recorded almost 120 billion losses. And as you can see in this chart, this is the worst number that has been recorded by the industry in the last 15 years, or if we take the chart to the back to 1990s, it is the worst year in the history in terms of profitability. And but as I showed in the beginning of the presentation, airlines effectively manage their costs despite the very slow recovery in their revenues. So we expect, we estimate that losses to be much lower compared to last year, this year. So it would be 1/3 of last year, almost $38 billion we expect industry to record this year. And finally, when we look at the regional breakdown, this chart shows the operating margins at the regional level. As you can see, we see improvements in all regions, but it is very uneven. At the negative territory in all regions, we have seen significant improvements in China and US in the as of the mid-year, since these markets are serving to large domestic travel, and which was in line with our expectations at the beginning of this year. But turning to profitability, it doesn't look possible for this year, even for the airlines in this region in these regions at the aggregate level. And as you can see, the other regions like Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa, and Latin America as well, are reporting some improvements, but it's limited compared to North America, because they don't have huge domestic markets, or they have restrictions because of the government risk-averse behavior. So the challenge will be for the next year to opening up the markets again into international traffic, unless there is easing the restrictions on the international traffic. The picture would not change that much, but we are optimistic about travel markets to reopen slowly in next year. But still, on the financial side, there exist challenges, and airlines will need to look at new sources of revenues and keep costs, especially under control in the near term. And especially for the airlines in the connecting regions, this will be a challenge next year. Thank you. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Esri, for this clear update on the economic situation. Yeah, I think we didn't expect a celebrating story, of course, but it's good to hear some optimism. We're running a few minutes behind on schedule, so let's move on fast to Adina, who will give us the Sys General update.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. The COVID crisis continued this year as well, and unfortunately, we will not be able to meet face-to-face this year. I hope that you, your families and colleagues are keeping safe and well. During today's presentation for Sys General Update, we will go through Sys volumes in 2021, high-level governance matters, and Sys Financials. So in this slide, we are seeing Sys scorecard for 2020. We have some significant numbers. In 2020, we processed 78 million transactions, and this is minus 66% compared with 2019 when we processed 229 million transactions. 2019, it was the highest year in terms of transactions and in terms of efficiency. For the invoices processed in 2020, we have 1.2 million transactions processed, which is minus 31% compared with 2019 when we processed 1.8 million. In terms of values of invoices processed through Sys in 2020, we had 25 billion USD, which is a minus 67% compared with 2019 when we had a record of 76 billion USD processed in the full year. In terms of entities, companies receiving and sending invoices to Sys, these are very good numbers, are in fact higher than 2019. In terms of units, in terms of unit cost, we ended 2020 with a 466 US cents unit cost, which is an increase of 165% compared with the unit cost of 2019 when it was 176 US cents, a very good unit cost. And this is due to loss of volumes at industry level. Moving to the next slide, here we have the Sys agreement, and we can see the continuous trend of new customers joining Sys. For this year, for 2021, we see that the biggest change it is for the ISUA type of agreement, suppliers and airlines. This is a type of contract that is allowing send and receive invoices only for miscellaneous invoice types. So in 2021, we had 15 more suppliers joining Sys. This is a very good increase in membership, and this also represents a potential for increased efficiency for airlines accounts payable. This can be done through the automation of payable invoices processes that is possible using e-invoicing through Sys. So we have auto posting, auto reconciliation, and also the possibility to automate the payment flows. We also had 2 airlines in 2021 joining the ISUA airline type of contract. These are airlines that do not have a need for interline passenger or cargo and are only interested in automation of miscellaneous payable invoices from their supplier that are also Sys participants. So this is already a benefit for both for the sender and for the receiver of the electronic invoices through Sys. Regarding the ISPA airline agreement, this is the main Sys agreement, and it is allowing exchange of electronic invoices, send and receive for all type of invoices, passenger, cargo, miscellaneous, and UATP interline transactions, and also from suppliers. Here, even if the net difference we see between 2021 and 2020 of 1, this doesn't mean that it was no movement. We did have movement in 2021, and we had 10 airlines, new joiners, and this is a big numbers of new joiners in Sys for a year as difficult as 2021 or even 2020. So these new airlines coming out of a very difficult 2020 managed to join the service in 2021, and this is a good news. But unfortunately, we also had 9 terminated participants. We lost 8 airlines and 1 suppliers. You can see the changes in the Sys participation on a weekly basis on the Sys website. We are posting weekly on our Sys website updates of the Sys member list, and changes are highlighted. So you can check our website and you can see there our Excel file posted with Sys member list. Moving to the next slide, this is the billing summary, and we are presenting the variation of the USD values exchanged through Sys, count of invoices and count of transactions, with a comparison between 2020 and 2021 and 2020 and 2021 versus 2019, which is the year with the highest volumes at industry level, to which all we are aiming to reach again. In terms of 2021 volumes, there is an overall decrease of 2021 versus 2020 that we see here in the aggregated year-to-date totals, January to August 2021. So this is due. So even if we have an increase in 2021 compared with 2020, this overall decrease of the year-to-date volumes, it is due to the high volumes recorded in the first 3 months of 2020 compared with 2019. We started 2020 as a very good year with higher volumes than 2019. Unfortunately, COVID crisis came, and after that, the entire year was we recorded a dramatic loss of revenues. So year-to-date invoice value, it is approximately 14 billion USD, which is lower by 30% compared with the same period in 2020, and minus 72 compared with 2019. In terms of Sys invoices processed, invoice counts, we have 693,000 processed invoices in 2020, which is lower by 20% compared with 2020, and minus 41 compared with 2019. In terms of transaction counts, we notice a 30% decrease in 2020. In 2021 compared with 2020, and the minus 72 compared with 2019. We can see that the most affected billing category was passenger, followed by UATP, cargo, and miscellaneous transactions. There are some good news in 2021, and we will see that starting with April or May for some billing categories. The trend is month-over-month increase, higher than 2020 volumes, but lower than 2019. So there are some signs of optimism. Billing values and counts by category in total for January to August 2021. In terms of value year-to-date, we see the highest share, it is 52%. For non-transportation billing category, followed by the passenger with 38% from the total volumes exchanged through Sys, and UATP and cargo with smaller shares of 6% and 5%. In terms of invoice count, also the highest contribution in total, it is coming from the miscellaneous invoice type with 59%, followed by passenger with 32%, and then cargo and UATP. The proportions are very similar with 2020. Moving to the billing values through Sys, overall for 2021, aggregated values for all billing categories. We see that in terms of billing values processed through Sys year to date, the invoice value, it is approximately 14 billion, which is lower by 30% compared with 2020. And when we processed 20 billions. This is due, as mentioned, due to the first 3 months of 2020 where we had higher values than 2019. This is determining the big difference and the overall minus 30% year to date, even if in 21 we do see a recovery starting with April. Most impacted billing categories were again passenger, followed by UATP, miscellaneous, and cargo. Cargo category, actually, as we also seen in the presentation provided by Ezgi from IATA Economics, cargo category actually have seen the biggest increase in 2021, also through Cis volumes for the interline cargo, and we will review this in the following slides. Moving to the passenger values, exchange through Cis in 2021, we see a 39% decrease year to date overall versus 2020 and a minus 17 compared with 2019. We can notice month-over-month increase on the passenger interline volume starting with April. And we have even a record of 194% in August compared with 2020, but still a minus 66 for August only compared with 2019. Passenger and UATP have seen the most significant increases in the billing values. In the interest of time, I will go faster to the slides with detailed volumes per billing category. As mentioned at the beginning, we will circulate the slide. All the slides you will receive, and you will have there the details. Please review and please don't hesitate to ask us any question you may have. For the miscellaneous billing category, we see a decrease of 23% compared with 2020 and a minus 61 compared with 2019, and the good signs with increase of volume starting from April. Moving to cargo billing category, values exchanged through Cis in 2021, we actually see an increase and a positive 17% volumes in 2021 compared with 2020, but still a minus 8 compared with 2019. This is very good news and trend for the interline cargo. And as we can see in the graph very, very clearly, the cargo interline volumes through Cis almost recovered the 2019 volumes in August, July and August 2021. Moving to UATP, here also we noticed a decrease of 33% overall year to date in 2020 versus 2021 versus 2020, a minus 86 of 2021 versus 2019. Even if we see an increase of volume started in March. In terms of number of invoices exchanged through Cis, in this slide we have the overall numbers for all transaction types year to date. And we can notice that we have a 20% lower volumes for the count of invoices exchanged through Cis in 2021 compared with 2020, and a minus 41% compared with 2019. We will see the most impacted categories were again passenger, followed by cargo, miscellaneous, and UATP. For the passenger invoices exchanged through Cis in 2021, we have an overall decrease year to date of minus 32% versus 2020, and a minus 58 compared with 2019. And we do see, in terms of count of invoices, an increase starting with June. For the miscellaneous invoices exchanged through Cis, overall, year to date, we have a minus 13 versus 2020 and a minus 23 versus 2019. In miscellaneous invoices, this is a lower decrease than the other categories, and we can see improvements as well in 2021 volumes, even if lower than 2020 levels. For the cargo category, overall year to date, we have a -16 decrease in volumes versus 2020 and a -44 versus 2019. And we see the higher volumes in cargo interline, starting with April 2021, even if we notice a slowdown in August with only 2% increase compared with 2020. It's still an increase, lower than previous months, but still an increase. In terms of UATP, we have a 4% decrease overall in terms of invoices exchanged through SIS in 2021 versus 2020, and we are still at -31 versus the baseline of 2019. But we noticed the continuous recovery starting in April 2021, and the lower, just -4, lower drop in volumes compared with 2020. Here we are moving to the count of transactions through SIS area, and in this slide we have the overall transactions exchanged through SIS for all the billing categories: passenger, cargo, UATP, and miscellaneous. We can see that in 2021 we have 43 million transactions exchanged through SIS, which it is overall year to date a -30 versus 2020 and a -72 versus 2021. So we can see that in 2021 we have lower volumes for the first 3 months compared with 2020, and this is due to the fact that 2020 had a very good start compared with 2019. Would have been a very good year. Unfortunately, COVID crisis started. But in 2021, starting with April, we see that we are recovering the volumes through SIS versus 2020, and we see a steady increase month over month from April to August, with a slowdown in August, as we also saw in the previous presentation, the slowdown in August transactions. So moving to the passenger area, we see a 31 decrease of volumes in 2020 and a -75 compared with 2019. We do see the steady increase from April to August, and for passenger transactions, August was even higher than July, and this hopefully will this trend hopefully will continue. Moving to miscellaneous transactions exchanged through SIS, we noticed a -25 year-to-date 2021 versus 2020, and a -51% versus 2019, with a constant recovery starting with May volumes. May was the lowest month in 2020 as well. Moving to cargo transactions exchanged through SIS, here we noticed the -15 overall year-to-date 2021 versus 2020, and the -15 versus 2019. We observed a slowdown in August, only a 5% increase compared with previous year 2020. So cargo, it was the category that performed better during the pandemic, and we have seen in terms of the billing values in the previous slide, almost recovered the 2019 volumes. In terms of transactions, these are still lower than 2020, and this is probably due to the lack of capacity for cargo. Moving to UATP transactions exchanged through SIS, here we see a decrease of 20% year-to-date compared with 2020, and a -56 compared with 2019. Recovery starting for UATP also from April, with a slowdown in August as well. This is probably signal for the reduced sales in August due to the wave 4 of COVID. But hopefully now, with the reopening of some border for the international travel, we will see a boost also for the interline volumes, as SIS has the most transactions coming from passenger international interline traffic, and it is very sensitive to the variation of the international traffic that is impacting, of course, the interline traffic. On the next slide, we have the miscellaneous non-transportation bilateral invoices in terms, the evolution in terms of value exchange and in terms of invoice count. So these are the invoices exchanged through SIS and paid outside the industry clearing houses, ICH or ACH. These are mainly invoices from suppliers to airline, but also interline miscellaneous invoices for non-transportation services between the airlines. In terms of value, we can see the increased trend from April 2021, and in terms of counts, we notice also an increased trend, but with a decrease in August. In the next slide, we are moving already to the governance area, and here we have some general aspects. So first of all, SIS Annual General Meeting in 2021. This year it is our first full online general meeting, and we introduced this year the concept of online voting for SIS changes that are proposed through general meeting agenda items submitted to this meeting. The detailed instruction on online voting through the IATA SSW platform, standard setting workspace platform, have been communicated previously through Cis bulletins and also through WFS industry meetings communication, and also have been included in the distribution of the Cis agenda and also IDSOP's agenda. I hope that you all receive it and you make good use of it. And later today, we will also have a presentation from Vivek again on how to run the, how to do the voting, online voting through SSW platform. Due to the introduction of the online voting, consequently, the SIS contract also needs to be updated to reflect the online voting. To this general meeting, we have agenda item S6 that have been submitted to SIS General Meeting for ratification, and we will review it together later in the day in the section of agenda items presentation. We also encourage all SIS participants to send us anytime proposal for the SIS new functionalities. This will be considered by SIS steering group and prioritized for future SIS development based on the benefits for the industry and also, of course, based on the SIS budget. You can send us anytime your proposals and ideas for new SIS functionalities using the IATA customer portal. The link is mentioned here in the slide. It's here. And you will need to select case classification as new feature request. Proposal received will be managed within the budget for the change request in SIS, but please feel free at any time to send us your proposal and don't hesitate. Moving into the area of 2021 SIS Financials, we know that SIS, it is run on a full cost recovery basis with prices that are set to recover the budgeted cost. As per ISPA agreement, for a cost recovery service, the surplus deficit amounts will be shared between all ISPA participants proportionally to the total paid in the relevant year. For 2019, which it was a very good year, we recorded a surplus of 246,000 USD. This steering group has worked closely with IATA to find solutions for the deficit reduction, and we together succeeded to bring SIS to a surplus situation in 2019 by implementing several measures. For example, reduced scope of major releases and enhancements budget, price increase that have been done in the past, and the new support contract with improved conditions in place from beginning of 2019, and several other measures. In order to mitigate the effect of the deficit of 2020, SIS Steering Group proposed to use the SIS surplus of 2019 to offset the 2020 deficit. This proposal has been approved by a Financial Advisory Committee, and the 2019 surplus has not been refunded, and it was considered in the Cis Financial of 2020. The final recharge for 2020, we did have a recharge for 2020. The final, it was 412,000 USD. Excuse me. And these have been recharged in P4 July 2021 to 480 participants, CIS participants, signatories of ISPA contract. The recharge and the share of the recharge has been done proportionally to the total paid by each participant in 2020. In terms of continuing the presentation related to 2021 SIS budget and financials, the result of 2021 activity due to the continuing devastating effects of COVID-19 in the aviation industry, we still estimate a deficit of approximately 719,000 USD. So this is the result of the dramatic loss of interline volumes through SIS and the very slow recovery in 2021 compared with the anticipated industry recovery. We do see signs of recovery, but slower than anticipated due to the wave 4 of COVID. In 2021, the cost reduction initiatives will continue, and we will constantly monitor this. For example, we have a reduced scope of SIS major releases. SIS Steering Group and IATA will continue to closely monitor the evolution of the situation in our periodic reviews of volumes and SIS financials in our periodic SIS Steering Group conference calls. To end the presentation, to end on a positive note, you noticed that this is the 10th SIS General Meeting. So the 10 also means that SIS this year celebrates 10 years since the launch in October 2011. So we celebrate 10 years together. These have been 10 successful years for the SIS service, for its participants, airlines, and their business partners and their suppliers, GDSs, airport ground handler, and other airlines suppliers. We have 10 successful years of working together for you and with you. We are successful working together. SIS performed very well during this period without issues, and you will also hear from the presentation later today from Julia. You will hear about the SIS system performance in 2021 and also about the great customer satisfaction results. In terms of numbers that we recorded in SIS in this 10 years, you see here on the slide the cumulative numbers in 10 years. We can see that in terms of number of invoices processed in SIS, we have 13.7 million invoices processed to SIS. We have 566 billion USD processed through SIS in these 10 years, and we have 1.7 billion transactions processed through SIS in 10 years. And we do have year to date 92.7K members. So these are impressive volumes. and the operation of SIS has been run very smoothly during these 10 years, including COVID period, without any disruptions. We are proud of what we have achieved together, and we thank you for being part of the journey. We also would like to thank very much to the SIS Steering Group, to the chair and to our vice chair of the SIS Steering Group for all the efforts, for the time and dedication, especially during COVID pandemic, where the effort was higher with our monthly conference call. We appreciate all the support. So we thank you very much, and hopefully we will celebrate at our next face-to-face general meeting that hopefully will happen next year. Thank you very much for your time, and I am passing back to you, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, Adina, thank you so much. And those were impressive volumes indeed at the end. As I said, we're a little bit behind schedule, so I will move very fast over to Julia, indeed, who will give us an update on the SLA performance of the SIS system. Julia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Hello, everyone. It's good to virtually see you once again for a general meeting. I'm going to walk you quickly through our SLA performance for 2021. Like Rob mentioned and Adina as well, I'm happy to deliver the good results that we have, despite everything that's happened last year and this year. As usual, I'll be covering the 4 areas: the system availability, system performance, and the help desk availability and performance. Looking quickly at the system availability, we've had very good results. We're at 99.9% of system availability year to date and 99.87% availability on a rolling annual average. Obviously, since we didn't have any major releases this year, our planned downtime has been lower as well. So we're at 6 hours year to date at the end of August, which is 31% lower than what we had last year. If, as you remember, we did have a scheduled May release last year. This is at a quick glance, you can see that there's no dips except for the switchover that we performed in March this year, where we switched between the sites. Otherwise, it's just maintenance releases that show the various fluctuations. Quick glance at the overall availability for last year, 2020. You see we ended the year at 12 hours and 49 minutes of planned downtime, 0 unplanned downtime, which was very good. And we're following the same trend this year so far without any unplanned maintenance. And as I mentioned, 6 hours of planned downtime so far. In terms of system performance, looking at the files processed and web requests, we have a little over 300,000 files processed year to date until the end of August. This is 4% lower compared to last year. And looking at the web response requests, this is 34% lower compared to last year. So there's a little less activity compared to last year. As Adina mentioned as well, last year we did have the first quarter of the year as a full activity. It was before we could feel the full effect of the COVID crisis. On a positive note, even though the total files processed were a little less this year, we did have an improvement in the average processing time, which went down to 57 seconds from 1 minute and 20 seconds of last year for the same period of time. Also displayed on a graph, you can see the total number of files processed and the average processing time every month this year from September last year, and the total number of files processed last year and year to date. Looking at the web response performance, as you can see, pretty constant. We do have a gap here in April, and this is due to an Oracle upgrade that was performed in March, and due to this, a component that logs the web response stats was now working properly. This was rectified, so this didn't have any impact on the system. It's just purely about the data collection, so we are missing the information for April. But other than that, you can see that it's quite constant, and the percentage of responses within the request responded within the 3 seconds is very much constant. Moving forward, I'm going to talk quickly about the customer support part. And here, I think we had communicated last year that we had now a global customer support model where our colleagues from the IATA customer service teams are handling queries in the regions as they come. This year, we have an additional layer with, sorry, with an external partner that is handling level 1 queries also from regional offices. So what this means for you is that you will get faster response within your time zones for certain types of queries like level 1 and level 2, which are simpler and easier queries that our colleagues can assist with. So you may have noticed this already in the customer portal that you do receive faster turnaround. For all the complex technical issues, those still continue to come to us, to our team of SMEs here in Montreal, and we'll continue to support you on that. Now, looking at the snapshot, the numbers so far year to date, we handled over 900 queries. We solved over about 54 incidents. And at the end of August, we had a customer satisfaction level of 88.7%. And this is the satisfaction from the instant surveys. These are the surveys that you receive more or less with every case that you log into our customer portal. You do receive a survey, and I strongly encourage you to take the time to fill it out and provide any feedback you have. This helps us make sure that the quality of the support you receive is excellent, that we are on point at looking at responding to your queries fast and with knowledge and expertise as you are used to. So it's very important to take the time to actually fill these out so we get an idea of how we're doing overall. Customer satisfaction, as I was saying, even though we did have the changes in the model, it hasn't changed dramatically. So as you can see here on this slide, it has remained constant from last year. There's a slight decrease of 2% compared to the same period last year, but other than that, it's very much constant. So we're happy to see that. And similar to the number of incidents this year, it continues to remain constant with a small spike here in March of this year. With this, I am closing my SLA update, and I'll pass the word to my colleague Vivek, who's going to talk to you about our annual customer satisfaction survey that we conducted earlier this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I will now continue this section with some of the results and highlights from the 2021 customer satisfaction survey that we recently conducted. You all may have remembered this survey coming to you via email to complete, and we really do appreciate your responses on that survey. It helps us help you as we progress in our everyday duties. So here we have an idea of the 2021 SIS survey conditions or the configuration that was set up for this. We targeted active SIS users in the last 6 months. Areas of expertise that we looked into were the customer satisfaction metrics, customer experience satisfaction, and NPS, the Net Promoter Scores, and contribution to business success. So the methodology was online. You all would have received emails to complete this survey, and this was done via an online form, and we received all the responses. We submitted the survey to about just under 4,000 users. We had a 4.4% response rate of just about 175 responses. This is close to the 2020 rate where we had just 5.1%, and of course this may be due to COVID and or any other limitations persons may be facing to do the survey. This is just a definition of the metrics used, so some acronyms and what they mean. The CSAT that you would see here means the overall customer satisfaction with SIS, or the product. CES is the customer effort score, how easy it is to do business with SIS. The NPS is the Net Promoter Score, how likely customers are to recommend SIS to others and their colleagues. And lastly, the contribution to the business success. How much do customers feel that SIS contributes to your overall business success? So those are some of the metrics, and also just to highlight some of the testimonials we received from your responses in the comments. Just to highlight some of the key terms that that were meaningful to us: single platform, single standards, best solution, quick and efficient, fast, thorough, easier, and faster and better. So we appreciate your feedback. Of course, this is the positive stuff. We would have taken all the comments into consideration and build and improve over the next year as we move in our operations. Here's an idea of the respondents' profile. So based on the respondents of the survey, we see that 86% of the respondents were airline members, 14% of them were suppliers. The regions from which they came, Europe would have ranked as #1, followed by Asia Pacific, then the Americas. Then we would have had the role of the Sys contact, or role of the respondent that would have completed the survey. 79% of you all would have been from the finance division, some from operations, followed by outsourced service providers that did the survey. And finance and operations may have some overlaps here, and next year you may see a difference in these terms or that terminologies used for you to select. Customer age. Just to get an idea of how the ages of our users are, and we find that how long has the customers been using the system, and we find that more than 5 years is the most of our respondents been using Sys more than 5 years, which is good. It represents a mature customer base. However, there is a target, a second place ranking of 11% for 1 to 2 years. So this leaves some room for new training, training for new joiners, which is a part of a webinar series that we support the industry with. And if you do have specific training needs for your member, please reach out to us and we'll be glad to offer a training model for you all, customized for you. Key experience metrics that we would have measured, just to reiterate the terms, from 2020 to 2021, here are the results and the differences. So for 2020, we would have seen slightly lower than 2021. 2021, we did improvements. We did have improvements across all of the metric factors that we measured. Overall satisfaction was up by just about 1%. CES, or customer effort score, was up by just about 2%. NPS increased the highest by over 10 points for Net Promoter Score. Satisfaction with the platform was just about 2% increase, and contribution to business success just about a 2% increase as well. So we thank you for your feedback, and we understand that Sys is in fact helping support your business needs in the industry. The NPS analysis. So this year the industry would have experienced some recovery from the COVID pandemic, and here are just some of the NPS detractors, neutrals, and promoters that we would have received from the survey. So some of the detractors for new users, the system might be a bit too complex or large in scope in terms of use. Then there's a need for training for those new users. The neutral promoter score factors would have been improved manuals and acronym decoders to help particularly as well the new joiners understand the documentation and acronyms in the industry. Extended lifetime of invoices within the platform is something that would have helped as well. That would help us as well for you, and establish regular trainings, which is our webinar series we continue to do. But again, if you do have specific or training needs, reach out to us via the customer portal. And of course, the promoters, some of the positive contributors to business to the NPS score would have been standardized invoicing platform. It's a powerful, simple reporting tool, and the correspondence feature is a good hit as well as the dispute feature is also an appreciated feature in the industry. Satisfaction with the Sys platform overall, we would have seen just about that 2% increase. So the area of most improvement that we need to work on over the next year would be the user resources, user contact management resources, member profile management, system notifications, as well as documentation, ISXML, ISPG standard updates, etc., etc. However, we did find strong responses for ISWeb performance, the Sys reports and output files that's being used, and of course the overall invoice management processes, including the screens and validations in the system. Sys support level of service. So here you have an idea of the customer support level of service, how satisfied our participants are. And we would have ranked highest in response to the clear and concise. And also, I think we did pretty well in this overall. And of course, we will reach out to you all. You will reach out to us if you do need any additional training needs or specific help with any specific cases. User resources, as we mentioned before, the industry webinars are doing a good job of helping the new users and existing mature users with understanding the system more. And this is something we'll continue. Guidance documents, we will look to improve and add new functionality guidance documents as we go, and also the same for technical standards. User guide has been recently reviewed and updated over the last couple of years or so. So this has been pretty good. We've also replaced the computer-based training, as you all may have been familiar with. We replaced that with the online ISWeb tutorial videos. It's now a YouTube playlist. So that's now working on the Sys website again and available for you as a user guide material. User training needs. So 22.2% of users require additional training. 77% of users requested training, preferred online training. So that remains a trend that we see. And of course, that's possible at any time for you. Reach out to us. And the training areas that we found users may specifically need to be on the ISWeb platform using the ISWeb platform itself, correspondence management, dispute management, and reporting best practices. So these are some of the areas we will look to address in the next couple of months and years as well when we host our other webinars. Summary overview. Some of the, as we would have also seen at the beginning, some of the sample insights. So airline members represented 87%, Europe and Asia Pacific summed up 63% of the total participants. While mature users represent the most satisfied, the new users remain an area of focus, as we mentioned. So we will continue to work on new users development. Users appreciate the single standard of Sys and the alignment it brings within the industry. And here are some areas of focus that we will work on as well. So training plan for new users, as we've mentioned, increasing the lifespan of invoices within the system. This is something we may consider as well. Users highlight an improvement opportunity for Sys documentation. So we will look to improve and enhance our documentation and add new documentation as well to the website. And here are some of the additional comments or developments that we would have received from you on the survey. And with that, I believe that brings us to the end of this session for this topic. Rob, I will now hand back over to you.
Thank you, Julia and Vivek. I think it's good that on a general basis to see that the performance of the system and its features will be translated into a very good customer satisfaction. So it's good to hear that and see that. So before a very short coffee break, we have our last subject, which will be presented by Kirk Pereira, who will take us through the Sys legal compliance update.
Thank you, Rob. Hello to everyone from sunny Madrid. I do hope you all are doing fine. As in previous years, I will be giving a short update on Sys legal compliance status. The 3 points I will cover today are: the first, the list of countries that Sys is currently certified and compliant in for invoicing. 2, the technical changes we had to do in 2021 to maintain compliance, and it was in a few countries only because we really had to. Otherwise, we were trying to make sure that we didn't actually go too much into enhancements. And 3, finally, the roadmap of what we plan to do in the next 2 years. So we start off first with the list of certified countries. We continue to be compliant in 44 countries. No change to this list this year. For these countries, we have got the solution reviewed by PwC in 2020 and have received a comfort letter. If you'd like to review the details for any country, you can contact Sys operations by raising a case via the customer portal. You will need to sign a release letter to get this information. We now move on to updates done in 2021. So compliance continues to evolve globally. And while business has slowed down in 2020 and early 2021, we still have many tax administrations pushing to improve on digitalization and eliminating VAT fraud. Even during the pandemic, there were updates done by different legislations around the world, and we needed to keep up. So the first one which we had to do was in Hungary. In 2018, in SIS, we had implemented the real-time invoice reporting, where SIS directly interfaces with the Hungarian tax authority system. For the SIS member, this process is seamless. The member still sends us data via the IS XML file, but SIS converts it into the XML format required by the tax authority and uploads it. This year, there was an XML upgrade to version 3.0 that was needed to be done by April 2021. Along with the upgrade, the XML, we also enhanced the SIS email alert the customer receives. Initially, the email informed the user which invoices had been uploaded to the tax authority, but now it also displays the transaction ID against the invoice number. This will help you as a customer to easily identify against which transaction ID was the invoice submitted. Another update was for India. Last year, I had given an update on how we are getting ready for the India e-invoicing rollout, and I'm happy to announce that we did go live in October 2020. Similar to Hungary, the SIS member using the service continues to submit data to us in the IS XML file or capture invoices using IS Web. SIS converts this data to a JSON file as per the specifications of the invoice reporting platform or the IRP. In turn, SIS receives the signed QR code invoice registration number from the IRP, and we integrate that data into our invoice PDF. We have also added a report in SIS where members using the service can check which invoices were sent to the IRP, and all bill members, that is any of you, irrespective if you are using the service or not, can also use this report to identify invoices that you have been billed that have been reported by the IRP and to SIS. Till date, SIS has successfully submitted more than 16,000 invoices to the IRP, and in May 2021, we further updated the system to be compliant for self-generated QR codes for invoices sent for B2C, as per the requirements of the Indian government. So B2C are just customers who are not registered for GST in India, but if a member is sending them, that was the requirement of the government that you need to also self-generate a QR code, and that was implemented in May. Moving to countries on our radars for the next 2 years. Like I said earlier, the country's compliance rules for e-invoicing continue to evolve, and we always need to keep SIS or adapt SIS to be compliant in these countries. On the roadmap, the first is Saudi Arabia. There's a new electronic invoicing project being implemented in Saudi Arabia. This is going to be applicable in 2 phases. Phase 1 is actually this year, from December 4th, 2021. No manual invoices will be accepted in Saudi Arabia, and they have issued a list of mandatory fields what you need to have on your e-invoice. For example, fields like VAT number, issue date, and the VAT amount. There are rules on archiving of these invoices too. Phase 1 is more on readying the market to move from paper to e-invoicing. Phase 2 in Saudi Arabia is on 1st of January 2023. It was initially in June 2022, but it has been recently moved. In phase 2, you will need a system which connects to the Zatka system in Saudi Arabia via an API. There will be multiple security mechanisms that need to be implemented to guarantee the integrity of the invoice, like digital signature, unique universal identifier, or the UUID as they call it, and the generation of a hash and a QR code. So we are closely monitoring this as we would like to be compliant in this country too. Short update for Portugal. Portugal too is implementing a QR code on all invoices and inclusion of the unique document code or AD code, which needs to be done by 1st of January 2022. This was initially mandatory in Jan 2021, but has been now pushed to Jan 2022. Poland, similar to other countries, Poland too is implementing an electronic invoicing system. This will be mandatory in 2023, where all invoices must be declared through a central platform called the National Electronic Invoicing System, KSF. This is similar to the SDI system implemented in Italy. In October 2021, the test phase starts, and by Jan 2022, it will be voluntary. And lastly, France. As most of you would be aware, France too is implementing a new e-invoicing and e-VAT reporting system. It will be mandatory for e-invoicing between companies. Chorus Pro will be the public invoicing platform, It currently is being used in France for B2G or business to government transactions. Initially, it was to be rolled out from Jan 2023, but last week we have received information that this rollout has now moved to 2024 onwards and in waves, depending on the size of businesses. So while we are working to get SIS compliant in these 4 countries, there are a lot more countries on our radar which we monitor for compliance changes to. If you are interested in either of these above countries, or there are other countries which you would like SIS to be compliant in, so that you can send invoices, then do get in touch with us. So that was my short update on legal invoicing. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Kirk. Okay, well, like I already said, we are now up for a very short coffee break. We're still some time behind. We hope to catch up in the next hour. So please be back in 5 minutes. It's saying, the slide is saying 10, but please be back in 5. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody. I hope everybody could get the opportunity to get some drink, get a beverage or whatever. And we will continue our program. And the next subject will be the presentation of the nominees. We got 5 nominees. And thank you, Vivek. And I would like to ask the nominees to use not more than 2 minutes each. And I think we will start with Mr. Pramod Kumar from Indigo, if I am right. Yes. Okay, please, Pramod.
Thanks, Rob, for providing me opportunity to introduce myself. I am finance professional, currently associated with Indigo as Associate Director Revenue Accounting based in India. I have experience of more than 25 years in passenger revenue accounting, cargo, miscellaneous UATP and audit. I have also experience in account receivables and payables. Indigo is my 5th airlines, and before that I have worked with 4 airlines and 2 offshore companies, which include Australia and Moreva. I have successfully served the SIS steering group, which is just going on. The reason for nomination is that I want to contribute my experience and knowledge for the betterment of industry. Now I'm coming to my employer. Indigo is India's largest passenger airline with a market share of approximately 60%. Indigo has a total destination count of 94 and 70 domestic destinations and 24 international. I hope I have not taken 2 minutes. Thank you so much for listening. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Pramod. Very well done in 2 minutes. Now I switch over to Mrs. Jessica Travis from American Airlines.
Thank you, Rob. Good day, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about my background. My name is Jessica Travis, and I'm the manager of Passenger Interline Settlement and Audit for American Airlines. I have degrees in industrial engineering and business administration, and I have over 20 years of professional experience ranging from microchip manufacturing to law firm operations and management. My career with American Airlines began 2 years ago, and I've worked really hard to learn airline acronyms and all the rules of the interline billing and settlement. This last year gave us all a time to reflect on how we do business. One of our team goals is to fully utilize the functionality of our current systems. In June, I was given the opportunity to be a guest presenter for the Sys webinar working with IS Web. Helping to create this webinar provided valuable insights into the Sys functionality. Since then, our team has increased its usage of Sys reports and regularly uses the data to improve. So one of the big goals that I have for our group here at American Airlines is improving operational performance through a data-driven business process. And Sys is a great platform to provide a lot of data. So I hope I can use my experience and my knowledge in lots of other industries to continue to serve the industry and be a part of the Sys steering group. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for your clear presentation. We switch over to China, to Mrs. Kai-Hong Zhang from Air China.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Zhang Kai-Hong from Air China Revenue Accounting Department, and it's my pleasure to introduce myself to you all. I have been working for Revenue Accounting Department in Air China for more than 15 years. Air China is one of the 6 passenger pilot airline in 2011, and I was the project manager of CA system. I'm also the Sys administrator of Air China now, and use this website very often. I'm quite familiar with Sys functionalities and standards. I'm good at process optimization, system enhancement, risk control, and quality control. And I will contribute my knowledge and effort into this steering group and have a good communication with all the experts in cargo and miscellaneous area to make more progress to the industry. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Kai-Hong. Also very clear story. Thank you. And that brings me to Mr. Chris Fang from Xiamen Airlines.
Hello everyone, this is Chris Fang from Xiamen Airlines. It's my honor today to introduce myself as a nominated representative in this year's SIS General Meeting. Since I joined Xiamen Airlines, I'm in charge of the interline settlement, from the research on the interline accounting standards, as well as the bilateral and multilateral clearance related account payable through IS web platform and ICH for all billings. I'm majorly acting as a monitoring role to improve the process of interline settlement from an airline perspective. And now I would like to bring them to the steering group and the industry. For my work, I could provide real examples for better development of the ICE web platform by acting as a member of the group, helping other member airlines to clarify their requests and understand their stories from a user perspective. I'm also happy to contact and cooperate with other colleagues and experts from other working groups to make consistent change along with the standards from other groups. I'm also looking forward to grow with the steering group, learn from the group, and engage deeper in the industry with other members. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris. And last but not least, we have João Feliciano from TAP, Portugal.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be introducing myself here to the steering group. I am João Feliciano. I work for TAP Air Portugal in the past 24 years in the revenue accounting as a business analyst for PAX, Cargo and Mail. I have been following Sys since the beginning, since its creation. And I think Sys is a moving target because it continues to change, giving tools to improve the industry in order to make the processes better in billing and settlement processes. I've been a member of Sys steering group since 2018, and it was a great experience working with such a great team, and I would like to continue. Sys for contributing and for implementing the industry, especially in this, such a difficult times. We hope that Sys can contribute and hope can reduce costs that's needed for the airline industry.
Okay, Joao, thank you so much, and thank you all. Well, as already said, I hope to meet you guys in person as soon as possible next year, and thanks for your contribution. Now, quickly, we will switch over to our next subject, which is a further introduction to the new online voting system by Vivek Punit. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Rob. Hello again, everyone. This section of the presentation today is to introduce all the participants to the new online voting system, which otherwise may be known as the IATA SSW, the Standard Setting Workspace platform. Most of you may have already been onto the platform, joined the platform, and already navigated some parts of it. But today, we'll just recap what you need to know and also some important notes as it relates to actually voting for the SysGM agenda items this year. So, are you ready to vote? You would have seen some of these notes and important links on the communications that we've been sending out. So for those members that have not yet submitted voting delegates for on behalf of your members, please align internally within your teams and complete the registration form online to indicate who are your primary and alternate delegates. You can do so by using the website surveymonkey.com/r/sys IBS Ops GM 2121. That's the link you would need to visit to designate your delegates for this year's voting. This will also be available online for you to click the link. And then there is a list of eligible voting members. So if you have already submitted your voting delegates on behalf of your members, you should see your names under the list of eligible voting member delegates online as well. This has been communicated in the email communications. So once you've gotten on to and you've registered for your delegates and you've gotten on to the IATA SSW workspace from the customer portal, you would need to look up for these two communities: the simplified invoicing and settlement voting items and the inline billing and settlement operations voting items. These are the two online communities in the IATA SSW platform that you will need to join in order to be able to view the agenda items and vote on them as well. So how do you access the IATA SSW platform? You log into the customer portal and you should find that standard setting workspace tab or button available to you in your list of services. If you do not have it listed there, you can request a service or log a query on the customer portal while you are there. And once you get access, you will be logged into, you can enter the standard setting workspace by clicking the button. It will take you to the home page, the welcome page for the IATA SSW platform, where you will go to then click communities. Under the communities, you would see the list of all the communities you belong to, and we'll take a look at that in just a bit, how you would navigate through that. But most importantly, when it comes to receiving email alerts for the communities you participate in, here's how you would go about doing that. So at the top right of the SSW platform, you would go to your profile, and then you would need to select, under My Account, you would need to select Community Notifications. This will allow you to set the email notifications that you wish to receive for the SSW communities that you participate in. So if there are the Cis voting items, the IBS Ups voting items, or any other SSW community, they will show up under this list of settings for you to choose what your notifications would be like for emails from these communities. Then we take a look at how to participate in the community discussion. So once you go to communities, you would select My Communities, under which you should be able to view all the communities that you currently subscribe to. The two most important ones to highlight for the purpose of these events are the IBS Subs voting items and the Cis voting items. The Cis voting items, you would click on the link and it would take you to that community particularly. Once you get to the community homepage, you would see at the top new tabs available to you. You would have the home of the community home tab, discussion tab, discussion documents, events, members, and workspace. To interact with a discussion item, which is also considered an agenda item for this year's GM, you would go to the discussion tab and they would list for you, you would see the list of the agenda items for discussion. So as you may know, some of you all would have interacted with the discussion items on SSW. You've left your comments, you've left your questions, and now that that time has passed, now it's time to enter into voting. So here's where you refer to those revised agenda items or most updated agenda items on the discussion tabs as well. They will also be available to you on the ballots. Then we look at how to reply to a discussion item. So on an agenda item, you will hit the reply button and it will allow you to submit your replies and or questions on an agenda item. So how do we vote in the workspace? So when you need to vote on the agenda items, you would go to the workspace tab of the community and then select ballots at the left. Once you open the workspace tab, you would see a list of new options on the left. You would select the ballots option. Under that, you would see the list of available ballots to be voted on. For the respective agenda items, for example, here we have an example agenda item that is up for voting. So you will click the vote button and the system will allow you to view the ballot. So with the ballot question, do you endorse the Cis GM agenda item? It will also have the attachment of the revised or most updated agenda item document in PDF for you to download. Once you've selected your option, if you select yes, you endorse this agenda item, your comment is optional. If you select no, you do not endorse this item, you are required to enter a comment in the comments box. If you abstain from voting on the item as well, you are required to enter a comment in the comment box. Before you vote, you can also attach any documents that you wish to go along with your vote, and we will receive them on our end. And you can change your vote at any point in time up to which the ballots are closed, which is October 15th at 9 a.m. EST. You can change your vote at any point in time in the ballots up until the closure. Here's a look at how you do that. You go back to ballots and then you would see the agenda item that you would voted on already. You would click the revote button and you would be able to change your vote using the same form that we saw before. So there is a video available with detailed explanations and a demo of how to vote. We've actually conducted a demo for you to see how a vote is done. You can access this video, you can play this video in the IATA SSW platform. It is available for you there, as well as YouTube and Yoku links. These links are available on the presentation. They will be available to you as well. They're on our SIS website, and they are also on the email communications that you receive. So you have all channels to access to view this demonstration video on how to vote at this year's SysGM for the agenda items. Last but not least, some of the voting protocols, the important voting protocols to be mindful of. To reiterate, as well as we put in the email, ballots will be open 2 days after the GM, which will be this Friday, 1st of October at 9 a.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. And the ballots will close 2 weeks after they are open. This will be on Friday, 15th October at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. One vote is counted per member. So one member's vote, even though you have a primary and alternate voting delegate, the primary vote supersedes the alternate voting delegate. So therefore, only one vote will be counted from each member. Up to the date and time when the ballots are closed, which is Friday, 15th October at 9 a.m. Up to this date and time, voters may at any time view the live ballot results. So you can view the live results of each ballot, or change your vote as many times as you need until the ballots are closed. So that's to reinforce some of the voting protocols. That brings me to the end. Yes, if you do need help with the SSW platform, please contact us at standards@iata.org, and we can assist you with any of the permissions or accesses issues that you may be facing. And that brings us to the end of this item, the introduction to online voting. With that, Rob, I will pass back to you.
Thank you, Vivek, for this clear explanation. And I quickly move over to Kirk, who will introduce the agenda papers for today.
Thank you, Rob. So hello, everyone. We move forward to the papers which have been raised. We have 6 papers today, and we will have the individual members reading out their papers.
Okay, the first paper is, are you going to do that,
yeah.
Kirk?
No, just, sorry, I just had a problem with the slides, but just a short update that the paper needs 75% majority vote to pass, and if the paper passes, it will go to the SIS steering group, who will then prioritize, decide when the changes shall be implemented, depending on the cost and business benefit. So Vivek, will you start sharing the papers?
Sure, 1 minute. Let me just stop sharing this and we'll get to the okay, Kirk.
Yeah, so we have China Southern for the first one.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Jacqueline from China Southern Airlines. Due to a similar paper was raised in 2019 at the SIS General Meeting, so China Southern Airlines withdraw this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, China Southern. Kirk, will you introduce the next one, please?
Yes, and the next one is All Nippon Airlines.
Yes, this is Mr. Joshi Kurashina. Please go ahead.
Can I hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, everyone. This is ANA, All Nippon Airways. Thank you for giving us such a good explanation time for our proposal. We have this time 2 proposals for IS Web functionality enhancement. First of all, I'd like to express overviewing of the S2 enabled to select multiple period when searching the interline billing summary. Okay, so currently SIS only allow to select the one period at the time when searching the interim billing summary on the IS web screen, the financial controller, from the menu, report, financial controller, interim billing summary. If we need to take the multiple period interim billing summary, we are forced to search the single period report one by one separately. So searching the result of credits and debits for multiple period on the all categories, I mean the class PUCM, is currently taking the time because the only one period can be selected on the current search criteria screen. So today we have the occasion for the searching the credit and debit has increased during the pandemic situation, so that to add the functionality to select the multiple period would be reducing the workload of the investigating the interim billing summary details for multiple period, monthly basis, quarterly basis, half-year basis, and some multiple period basis of the interim billing summary. So we proposed that to add the billing period from and the billing period to column on the searching criteria screen, as shown in the sample screen image on this paper, to enable to select multiple period for interim billing summary, which could be the same manner as the searching criteria of the menu from the passenger interim billing summary on IS web screen. So this is the all for S2 proposal from ANS. Thank you for your attention.
Yes. Maybe before you move over to S3, Kurt,
Okay.
do you have any comments on S2?
Yeah, just a short one. Thank you, All Nippon, for raising the paper. We
Yep.
had a look at the request, and indeed it would be beneficial to change the query options. Additionally, not only the billing period from and to fields, but even once the report is generated, even the generated report should have the billing period mentioned there, so then the user can easily understand the amounts. So yes, if this paper gets prioritized, we will ensure that that column 2 is added there. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Oh, please go ahead with your next proposal.
Okay. So, So let me explain overviewing the S3 proposal. Implement a back button on the invoice search and manage screen of all SIS categories in IS Web. So for example, in the case of editing and viewing miscellaneous credit note, it is firstly required to enter the particular search condition in the search criteria screen. In most of cases, of multiple invoices are shown on the list as the search result. It is necessary to select the target invoice one by one to check their details. When going back to the search result screen from the edit and viewing miscellaneous credit note screen in order to edit and viewing other invoice details under the same search conditions. However, there is no back option on this screen. Only way to back to the search result screen is maybe click the back button of the browser application. In this situation, unfortunately, search condition enter the search criteria screen and the invoice list of the search result will be lost when we are back into the search criteria screen from the invoice detail screen. At least we have to enter the same search condition again. So we propose to implement a back button on all invoice and search screen, management screen across the SIS platform, all categories, including the edit and the viewing the miscellaneous credit note screen, to go back to such result as the same manner as the back button on the view correspondence screen. Okay. So this new button makes the search condition enter into the search criteria be remained even after screen transition and avoid the entering the condition again. And this is all for our S3 proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joshi. Kirk, any comments on this one?
Yeah, just again, thanks to All Nippon for raising this. Based on the comments on SSW, we about looking at other invoice screens, we did do a check. The Sys operations team did a check and have already identified the screens. And again, should this paper pass and go to prioritization, it will cover not just the miscellaneous, but all the screens too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll go over to the next one, which is about correspondence on enhancements. And this is presented by Mrs. Olga Nasunova.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. This is Siberia Airlines paper concerning the correspondence's functional enhancement. There is only hand mode of correspondence processing provided in Sys now, and final billing and credit memos following the correspondence cover all the disputed documents by one single amount without any document details. And the problem is tracing of the document settlement at the correspondence stage is complicated because of the following reasons. Manual calculations are involved, historical data can be saved on Sys website only and cannot be automatically downloaded into the revenue accounting systems of the carriers. Final financial result of particular document can be hardly generated. Mixed exchange rates are used within one correspondence. Minimum correspondence limit check in Sys uses exchange rate different from the exchange rates used for the original billing of disputed documents. Our proposal solution to minimize correspondence handling costs, we propose to expand the IS6ML and IS-IDEC file structure with the disputed documents details such as coupon level breakdown of fare, commission for each commission type, and tax fees and charge for each TFC code. As an extended version, we propose using the structure of rejection memo within the correspondence lifecycle. Hope that all this will allow to keep the necessary data in the revenue accounting systems and automatically prepare the billing after the debit authorization. Also, please note that this paper applies to the data exchange process only. No changes are proposed for the billing procedure. Thank you for your attention. That's all.
Thank you, Olga from Siberia. Kirk, any comments?
Thanks, Rob. And thank you, S7, for the paper. There were quite some comments received on this paper on the SSW side, so I'll try to answer some of them. From IATA's side, we agree that, yes, this is going to be a big change as it involves a lot of data which has to be extracted in the correspondence, not just the correspondence, the link rejections, and the link coupons. However, if it eases the workload, correspondence handling, and accounting on the airline side, then yes, we would support the paper. If this paper passes and then if the steering group prioritizes it, there will be changes in Sys, which will have to be done. But from our side, we'll try and minimize the changes on the airline side because we will try and see that it's optional so that airlines don't make no need to make the changes, and those who don't want to do this change can still do normal correspondence through ISWeb as they do it today. Lastly, I would like to reiterate that our goal in IATA is to minimize correspondence and rejections as far as possible. We have been working with the IBS Ops and the Sys steering group on reducing rejections and correspondence. But however, we do support this paper because in the end, if it makes it the process easier from the airline side, then yeah, we are all here to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. And our last agenda paper is about technical adjustment for fields with a drop-down list. And this will be presented by Mrs. Monica Kolos from Lufthansa.
Yes, thank you, Rob. So good morning, good afternoon. I'm Monica Kozlembas, and on behalf of Lufthansa, I would like to share with you the agenda papers that refers to the technical adjustment on the IATA platform. The background is that during rejection invoice creation on IATA platform, there is a requirement to put structured information as an answer for rejection. This field is obligatory. Such answer should be chosen from the drop-down list, which is not visible on the first view. There is no icon, no information. You have to click on this empty field or start just typing the code for drop-down list to appear. This is a bit unintuitive because there is no description and no icon next to the description field suggesting to choose something from the list. So that's why we propose to implement a small icon or short description that can remind the user to choose an answer from the drop-down list. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Well, Kirk, your comments, please.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Monica, for raising this. Yes, this is a small change, and again, if it passes, we could solve this by having a tooltip or just a small icon over it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kirk. Those were the agenda papers. Now quickly move over to the next subject, which is being presented by Adina, and it's about revision of section 5.5 from Sys ISPA.
Thank you, Rob. Following the introduction of virtual online Sys General Meeting and the approval from the Financial Advisory Council to hold online voting for the agenda items submitted by Sys participants to the Sys General Meeting, there is also the need to amend the current Sys agreement to reflect the online voting as well as email votes. The governance section in the Sys agreement, the section 5.5, is only allowing for mail vote and does not have online voting clearly defined. Proposed solution is to update the ISPA Sys contract section 5.5 to incorporate the online voting and email votes. In the text in the agenda paper that you see now on the screen, the red text is the text that it is added to the existing article. The updated article 5.5 in the ISPA will read as follows. In IATA or Sys steering group's opinion, when elections or other measures require action by participants outside the schedule of Sys General Meeting, participants agree that a mail vote or online votes or email votes may be taken as an alternative. The update of ISPA section 5.5, it is submitted to this Sys General Meeting for the final ratification by Sys participants in the form of article S5, agenda item S6, sorry. So this update of the ISPA will give us flexibility to organize for online voting or email votes whenever where is the need. The new article will be published in Chapter B16 of RAM Manual, effective January 2022. As an additional clarification, would like to mention that every time when the online voting will be used, IATA will publish in advance detailed instructions on how to use the tool selected for online voting. As we already saw, we published previously the instruction for SSW platform that it is used for this occasion. Additionally, we would also like to mention that the voting rule of 75%, as stated in ISPA section 6.3, will not change and will be applicable for the online voting as well. As in the ISPA section 6.3, an agenda item will be considered passed if it is agreed by 75% of those present at the Sys General Meeting. So in the context of online voting, those present at the Sys General Meeting means the total number of Sys participants entities that registered the representatives for online voting. The representatives for the online voting are the primary delegate and alternate delegate. Only one vote is counted per Sys participant, and the vote of primary voting delegate supersedes the vote of alternate voting delegate. The participants that registered representative for online voting, so primary and alternate delegate, but do not vote, will be considered as abstentions. Thank you. Rob, back to you.
Thank you, Adina. Well, it's going to be a close finish, but I think we're going to do fine. Our next speaker is Bruno Roussel, who will tell us about the Sys New Futures Roadmap.
Thank you. So I will speak about the new feature roadmap. So first, I will give an update on what we did about the auto coding. That is the first feature that we intend to develop when time will allow or when money will allow us. Is really to help the airline to code the invoice automatically, to help the finance team to do the coding of the invoice and the cost accounting, and the same for the tax, which is something that is a bit new for the in the world of invoicing, because usually you do that for cost, but you don't do that for tax. But because we have the technology with EDI, we can do that, so it's a benefit. I will also mention about PDF listing for cargo. That is another activity that is moving on and that we have identified some improvement, and also the Sys dispute that we have some discussion currently internally to see how we can improve that. I will mention about it, and the integration with CAS. So I start with the coding automation. So I give some background. So it didn't change since last year, but it's the same logic. We would like to automate the booking of invoice and to facilitate the data integration. This is valid only for miscellaneous, and it will allow you to code also automatically the tax of that. So that means that when someone processes an invoice in the ERP, they don't need to do the ventilation. It can be done automatically. And you will have the possibility to do that at 3 levels, depending where the tax or the VAT is prevented, and on the costs. It could be either a line item or line item details. Only two levels for tax. The matching rules will be those one, and you see that we have added their waybill number, because some people told me that they were doing their cost accounting based on their waybill. So it will be a new feature that we will add to the original request, change request. For the tax, nothing has changed. It will be the same feature. In terms of new field in IS XML, originally I was optimistic that with 5 fields we will be enough. But after we started to discuss with some airline, we realized that people have very extended roles to do some coding. So we decided to make it flexible. So there will be a basic parameter like GL account, company code, and cost center. And there will be dynamic parameters that the airline could provide. That could be the name of the person that need to validate, a specific code internally, or some reference. And it will be additional information that will be provided when enriching the IS XML for facilitating the consumption of data for the airline. But we also realize that because of this feature, because it's always like this, we do a V1 of the feature, and when we start to discuss the detail, we realize that there is additional features that we need. So because here we did not develop it, we had the time to review the requirement. So what we need is a default coding in case there is a new supplier coming in. So because the invoices arrive, you need to have a process where it will be coded automatically, but with default value. So this is a new feature. It will be also an alert generated by the system to let you know that there was a new supplier coming and it was not coded, or it could be a supplier that is coded, but a new type of services that they are issuing that you did not code. And it will be some notion of role and management and master coding to load the data, but with a file, but it will be later on, because it will be an end feature that we will see based on the usage of the system. And it will be also some role assigned to define who can allocate the cost and the code and all that. So it will be the parameter that we will enrich the feature with to make it more functionable. I mentioned earlier, so what is happening currently, we are working with a lot of cargo handling agent, and I start to realize that the listing that we have today, the first issue I realize is on the listing for cargo handling, there is no mention of airwaybill number. and it's a key element for reconciliation when you do that manually. So we will have to do some work on that. And there is also some new thought that I started to have when I was looking at the example of the invoice from the supplier. Some of them are giving some consolidation of the services based on flight or based on the route or based on type of service. So depending on the way they build the invoice, the listing is also used to give some additional, I would not say statistics, but the breakdown of the charge per a different view. So I was thinking it could be useful to look at it to see what will be useful for the airline. Because if you use the process of processing the PDF in the manual manner, you may want to have some subtotal or some grouping of cost under certain elements. So for that, we will also discuss with the steering group and maybe a few airlines to see what they will see as a need. Today, it's just an idea for improvement, but it's not formalized yet. And the last one is the Sys dispute improvement. So we get a lot of feedback from airline about how we can improve the process, even internally within IATA, because we're a big user of the dispute process. We have identified some friction point where we want to improve the process. And the idea here is we have already put some thought in it, but we want to use maybe a subgroup of the airline from the steering group to discuss, or maybe some airline that were very vocal about complaining about the process, to give their input, to give them a chance to review what we suggest and to see if it will solve the matter. And the idea out of this is to create one or many or few CMP to improve the dispute process, to make it more efficient, especially when you do that manually. Because when you do that with a system, it's a bit less of an issue. And my last point is integration with CAS 2.0. So it's a very important turn for us in the sense of it will. It's not the first time, but it's a very convergence of IATA in the strategy where we help each other system. And the idea here is to in the CAS 2.0 is when an invoice is needed from a legal reason, instead of the airline to create a sub-process outside of Sys or of the CAS process, to use Sys as a vector to create the legal invoice, like it could be in India or in different places. And it will allow the airline to maybe further streamline the CAS process and maybe reduce some cost, because if it's mandatory for you to issue an invoice locally, you may use an accountant or someone that does that manually, and it may be costly. Here it could be fully automated and fully integrated. So it's something that is coming. So it's good that you know about it. And that's it from me.
Thank you, Bruno. It's good to hear that you're still chasing all automation possibilities to help the airline industry. And it's good to hear that. Okay, quickly move over now to Mrs. Camille Chan, who will tell us something more about the postal account settlement system, PASS. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, everyone. So for the postal account settlement system, this new service IATA introduced this year, and I would like to share with you about the concept and the benefit of these new services we provide to the industry. So, sorry, I have a little bit difficulty to see. Okay, here now, yeah. So what is PASS? PASS is the global digital platform to simplify the billing and settlement between the airlines and the postal operators. So it's similar concept using like BSP for passenger, CAS for cargo. And this new system is leveraging the experience we have for the cargo side and introduce a similar concept for the e-commerce for the AML transportations. Let me click on the link. Yeah. To share with you the video. think the sound is not coming from the video, but you can see the subtitle we have about the descriptions. Thank you. Although we don't have a sound, but when you get that, you can also see the ticket link on the full video. And from the video, you can see the next slide. I'll just try to, yeah. We are introducing the concept is moving the current manual one-to-one and paper process to the automated digitalization global platform. So similar, like what I mentioned is BSP in class, we build the central platform in the middle for the PaaS systems. So for the AI, they can put in the billing data to the central platform. Then the system will do the data validation, processing, calculation, and then to generating the invoice. The invoice part using the Sys invoice, and then we'll together with the supporting document distribute the postal operator. The postal operator will upload their can upload their operational data to conduct the account reconciliation in the system, and also we will have able to trigger the online disputes. So once the invoice is approved, the airline, the postal operator can choose payment direct to the PaaS, and then we distribute back to the airline like what we did for the PaaS and BSP, or we the postal operator can choose the direct payment to the airlines. So this system is we're helping to standardizing the current process and offering the automations and legal invoice to the airline for all the AML transportation. Next slide. And what we offer is we offer the standardization and centralizing the billing data and operation data, and also all the automation, the data validation, and the fixed calendar for the airline to fix the schedule to generating the invoice, and offering the standard Sys invoice, and then with the data format to the user, and then we also facilitate the invoice reconciliation, payment validation, automate the online dispute, and offering the flexibility because the system itself can accommodate all the current bilateral arrangement, the terms and conditions between the airline and postal operator. Next. And the key benefit, of course, we hope we can help the airline and then also the postal operators for the e-commerce settlement, increase the efficiency to move from the paper process to and then the manual process to the automation fully paperless, reduce their costs, and then also to help them to improve the current cash flow because it's with the current standardization, and also the automation will help to have a less dispute and improve the airline collection ratio, and then also to streamline the payment procedures for the airline to make the on-time settlement become possible, and also helping the stronger the partnership between the airline and postal operator, because the volume in the e-commerce side is actually every year is more than is a double-digit increase. So the volume is getting more and more, and it's really difficult to maintain the current manual process for the airline and postal operator to handling the billing and settlement part. So that's all my presentation. If you have, if you like to have more information, contact me for the demo or trial run, and then or you can also visit our website as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Another interesting new service. Going over to Michael Schneider, who will tell us something more about another interesting subject, the aviation carbon exchange.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for having me here today and to talk about the aviation carbon exchange, or also better known as the ACE. So the ACE is really a carbon trading platform. That was launched in November 2020, and during the last IATA AGM actually. And it's my great pleasure today to give you a brief overview over the service, and more importantly, explain to you really the role of SIS and ICH in the context of this ACE initiative. So before going into some of the details, I think it's important that you really understand a little bit the background where we're coming from with this service. And we actually have to really look at the big picture and the environmental ambition that the industry has. I think on this slide, and I think I'm pretty sure that many of you have seen this slide before in maybe some different form and shape, but on the left side, you have very clearly indicated some of the environmental ambition and the goals that we have as a sector. And there's some very concrete things that we would like to achieve. One of them being carbon neutral growth from 2020. And here there's definite mechanisms on how we're going to achieve this. Of course, airlines investing $1 billion in technology, in new aircraft models, flying more efficiently, so operation infrastructure plays a very important role, and sustainable aviation fuel. That's of course an area that's becoming more and more of importance. We need to ramp up the production of those fuels and make them more affordable. And all those different pillars that you see here actually contributing to our ambition to cut our emissions in half by 2050, or even potentially looking at a net zero commitment by 2050, 2060, and that's being discussed with our airline membership. So one thing, unfortunately, that is really a reality is that even so by using those pillars that I mentioned, technology, operation, infrastructure, we will always be left with a certain amount of what's called residual emissions. And here a market-based measure will be kicking in. Market-based measure meaning really mechanisms that basically allow us to reduce emission in other sectors, so by investing in carbon offsets. And CORSIA, the carbon offsetting and reduction scheme, the scheme that basically 192 member states of ICAO have signed up to, is designed to basically help us to achieve carbon neutral growth from 2020. The challenge with this program is that airlines have to comply and meet specific carbon credit investment criteria, and those are quite complex actually. Basically, those emission units or carbon credits that airlines can invest in, to understand, what are the different environmental integrity criteria that have to be met, like permanent reductions, additionality, traceability, adding maybe also some non-CO2 related co-benefits, etc. So there's one obligation here that's very concrete to airlines, is basically the investment in carbon credits. On the other hand, we see a lot of airlines have made voluntary commitments, carbon offset commitments, and we are now having counted more than 50 airlines having made a voluntary commitment in some form and shape. A net zero commitment, for example, you see some examples here, even airline groups have done this. And of course, airlines also run passenger programs, voluntary passenger offset programs. And some of you, and I think it's more than 40 airlines actually running those programs quite successfully, with the need also to invest in carbon offsets. And the same applies also when offsetting, for example, your own business travel. So the actual exercise of procuring carbon is, it's not a trivial exercise. because there's quite a number of players out there, and I hear from airlines almost on a daily basis that they've been approached by different traders, and it's quite difficult to make your choice with whom to work with. And let's face it, many airlines are not really equipped to enter in the carbon market because they have very little experience or had a very little exposure, apart from maybe a few airlines that have their own carbon trading desk. But in general, there's very few people that maybe within the airline have that exposure. And sometimes this is being not outsourced, but different departments being in charge of such an exercise. It could be treasury, it could be even corporate communications, environment, finance. Yeah, there's different parties, so there's not really one party that you could sort of pinpoint as being responsible for doing this. The actual transacting is very technical and complex because there's complex agreements, usually on a bilateral basis, that have to be signed and to agreed. It's costly because lawyers have to be involved. Again, procurement, legal, etc. So which adds administrative burden and cost. The carbon market itself is very fragmented, so you have different standards and programs with different carbon registries. So there's not one single place that allows you to transfer carbon in, for example, your own registry account. And then, of course, the risk of investing in carbon credits that an airline would like to use under CORSIA, but the risk is if I don't really make the good choice and identify properly CORSIA eligible units, you may lose your investment. And of course, this is also linked to the lack of carbon market intelligence. So what is really available in the market? What's the price per ton? Very hard to obtain usually. And what is the markup actually? Because there's so many players out there. And I can tell you the markup and the margins that are made are quite big. 50–60% is quite normal actually. So how does the ACE address some of the challenges? And here we're talking about a system and a fully fledged carbon exchange with more than 1,000 traders that allows to actually contract simultaneously with different parties that offering carbon credits. So you work with digital contracts, totally eliminating paper or special agreements. You have the price transparency. You can see the price per ton right away. The standard type location, geographical location, often very important for airlines wanting to invest in a specific area or maybe close to their home market. A market overview, it gives you really transparency, what is available in the marketplace. Also, airlines want to have the option of not only buying, but also selling. So we have seen with COVID that maybe airlines have made investments at an early stage, and emissions are much lower than obviously due to the COVID situation than what was anticipated. So what do I do actually when I have a surplus of carbon credits? Can I actually put them back into the market? And what I feel it's a very important angle also to the exchange, the ACES, it's very impactful because in a way we're cutting out the middleman and can give the opportunity for carbon offset project developers, so the people that are doing all the great work on the ground, implementing those projects, reducing emissions, helping local communities, helping with gender equality, creating jobs, keeping people healthy. They can directly benefit. So the proceeds going directly back into those projects. Overall, obviously, we want to reduce the cost for our airline members. That's, of course, always paramount when we develop such projects. And here the angle to the IATA clearinghouse and SIS is really that we are coupling the carbon exchange functionality with the settlement capabilities of the exchange. I wanted to share with you just a few screenshots of the exchange itself, giving you a bit of a feel. You see right away when you enter, you get the price per ton, the volumes available, the different carbon standards. So the system is directly linked to the largest and carbon standards that exist and also that are accepted under CORSIA. It gives you the different project types, whether it's a forestry project or a renewable project. It gives you information by country. You can select by country. You can drill down by project, so you make your due diligence, you get all the audit reports of the different projects that are being offered. So that is actually extremely powerful if you wanted to understand, so how does the, how are the emission reductions achieved? Is it a solid project? And it gives you the, since it's a spot market, allows you to to do a lift, so to right away accept prices as you see them on the screen, but you can also negotiate, you can forward a bid, you can buy, you can sell, you can purchase CORSIA credits, so you have basically lumped together in contracts CORSIA eligible credits, and which gives you a lot of transparency in terms of what is the price of a CORSIA credit. Just to wrap up here, the integration with the IATA, SIS, and ICH is ongoing currently. So we have a pilot running. There will be a central invoice bearing the ACE transaction details. So we, of course, are working very closely with airlines to make sure that the information that's going to be appearing on the invoice is really transparent, and it's really what airlines need for their own internal processing. Obviously, the ICH itself provides a great platform for safe and secure settlement of funds. It's a proven system. We know from the billing and settlement plans and the settlement of agency funds. It is also helping with the guaranteed delivery of credits from the different carbon registries, guaranteed payment, and overall, of course, it should reduce the administrative burden and cost. In terms of the settlement, we look at T+2 settlement, which kind of follows, I think, the general settlement process of the ICH. And like I said, the integration is currently ongoing with a pilot airline. Yeah, just one more picture on the importance of carbon finance. I mentioned before, investing on those projects and directly having access to the project developers, of course, make sure that the proceeds going back into these projects. In terms of access and costs, it's open to all airlines, IATA and non-IATA airlines. Participation and access are free. Please reach out to us, ace@iata.org, if your airline is interested to be part of it. We also can do a demo of the actual system. And the cost is very, very transparent, and it's very competitive in terms of their trading fee. So it is really 5 cents per ton of carbon procured via the exchange. So with this, I'm giving back to the chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And again, this was also a very interesting topic to end our contents of today. I'm sure that we're all fighting the COVID crisis and a financial crisis, but I think we absolutely should not forget about this being CO2 neutral in some time. And I guess that's a topic of many boardrooms of many airlines. Okay. Now, I would like to also announce that around 220 attendees were here today. So I hope for all of you, it was a very interesting and valuable program. And now for a closing, we have Adina, who will give us some information about the date and the place of the next general meeting.
Thank you, Rob. From my side, just very short information is related to the fact that the date and the location for the SIS General Meeting 2022, that hopefully it will be a face-to-face meeting. It will be announced during WFS 2021 that it will take place during 19 and 20 October 2021. So stay tuned. We will have a communication that will be sent out from WFS 2021 on 20 October 2021. Thank you. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Adina. Yeah, I was already saying it was a close finish, so it is. I want to thank you all for being here today. We don't have so much time for any other business, so for me, thanks to be here, and yeah, I hope to see you next year face to face, many of you, and thanks so much for being here today. Again, the recording of this webinar is done, and you can see the Q&A document, like I already said, on the SIS website, and it will be sent by email to you all. Next slide. Yeah, it's here at the close. So thank you all, and have a nice day or evening or night, wherever you are. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much to all of you. Bye-bye. See you soon.